Now, having explored the Celtic, ancient and mythical in 2 previous books, Anthony Murphy has turned his hand to fiction with a lovely little novel or novella called Land of the Ever-Living Ones, in which an old man imparts his wisdom to a young boy. And the young buck is with me this afternoon. Anthony Murphy, good to see you.
How are you doing, Jerry?
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this. I read the book and it burned inside me. I said, first off, I have to ask him, what were your intentions when you set out to write this?
That's a very interesting question. There's a few things. Well, first of all, to fulfil an ambition to write fiction, which I wanted to do when I left school. Well, I've always wanted to write. You know, I've been writing since I was a kid. I remember my father asked me when I'd done my Leaving Cert, he said, what are you going to do? And I said, I want to write novels. That's what I said. And he said, well, that's not going to pay the bills. And he was kind of right, so, he encouraged me to go into journalism, which I did. And I ended up writing non-fiction, which is, I think probably, comes from the fact that I was a journalist, where you're trying to get across facts mostly, This is an attempt to express my creative side, first of all, but also to impart some of the mystical and magical elements of all of the things that I've been researching that I haven't been able to do in non-fiction. Because when you write non-fiction, you're shackled to an extent. You wear a straitjacket. Okay, if you're academic, you have peer review. If you're non-academic, you still have peer review. You have readers to please, and the readers are very discerning. And, one or two people have described my works of non-fiction as fantasy. I kind of tried to I strayed into mythical realms with the non-fiction. This is unbridled creativity. This is absolutely delving into the deepest parts of my creative spirit here and drawing upon all of that magical stuff that I've I get a real vibe in the Boyne Valley from Newgrange and the myths. I get this vibe. It's ancestral and it's cosmic and it's mystical, and this is an attempt to try and express that.
So this comes from within, could I say, with any influences from your previous work or your life experiences as well?
Both. Very much so, both, yeah. Obviously, there's a Newgrange sequence in the book where the old man describes basically he visits the other world in Newgrange. But in addition to that, I would say one aspect of the book is that it's full of the idea of light after darkness and sunshine after storm. And I suppose in that respect, it touches upon my own journey with depression. I suffered from depression, and, that there's the idea that there's always hope and that there's always light is something that I think I didn't intend to do that. But when my editor, Laura Murphy, had read the book, it was one of the first things she said. She's very astute. She said, do you know what? I get a sense of your own journey through depression with this book, and your own idea. I'm a bit of an optimist, whereas I wasn't always optimistic. I'm very optimistic now. I try to see the good side of things, and I think that in some way this expresses that. I'd like to think that people who suffer from depression will read it and get something from it, but I didn't intend. That wasn't the intention when I set out to write it.
It's interesting you tell me that, because I would have known that about you, and now, you know what? You've turned the light on in my head.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get to the point, because that's what I was trying to, and you've told me, and smart woman who saw that when she read it herself. But there are enduring themes and analogies you make in this book here. Can I talk about a few of them to you?
Please, yeah.
The first one is fire. Now, you talk extensively about fire and how important fire is to man. We know about heat and food and energy, but Anthony, you talk about fire in the belly and fire in the head.
Yes.
Now, tell this fire in the belly. We all have it, have we, to a greater or lesser degree?
Oh, this is just an effort for me to get across some sort of primal ideas, I suppose, about the human condition and, about our own psyche. And the difference being that, the fire in the head, well, the fire in the head comes from Amergin. And, you know, Amergin is in the headlines lately because they're looking for him at Millmount, and that's supposed to be the place that he's buried. And I love all of the coincidences that are happening at the moment. It's really nice. It kind of convinces me that I'm on the right track.
I think you have an ability beyond even this book. You're able to see these things now.
Well, 7 or 8 years ago, myself and Richard Moore wrote that we thought that the Hill of Slane Mound was a passage to him and that Millmount was a passage to him, and those two mounds have both been researched now by archaeologists. I don't know whether they're reading our work and being influenced by it. I mean, but just to get back to your point about the fire in the head, Amergin spoke about that, you know, and the fire in the belly is different. The fire in the belly is, you know, as I said, what spurs you to action when action is required. The fire in the head is that spark of ingenuity, that spark of inspiration that is within everybody. And I think that my own fire in the head burns very brightly. I think that's maybe comes across in the book to an extent as well, you know.
You talk about the flame of wisdom as well, isn't in everyone. You're dead right there. If only it were.
Yeah, I don't know to what extent, you know, again, this isn't supposed to be an autobiography. So there are probably autobiographical aspects to it, you know, where people will read it and say, yeah, that's probably his own sort of, you know, knowledge or his own sort of spin on his own experiences coming through. The flame of wisdom. Well, we've all met people who maybe we think didn't act wisely in a particular situation, and I'm sure if we all look back at moments in our own lives and we'd say to ourselves, oh, I can't believe I said that at that moment, or I did that to upset that person. And, you know, we all wish that we had more wisdom all of the time. This is an attempt to look at somebody mythical and somebody fictional, this wise old man, the Chandree from ancient Ireland, who has this wisdom. Like a tribal elder, you know, like a Native American Indian or something, or an Aboriginal who's imparting all his knowledge to the boy in the hope that the boy can maybe not make the mistakes that he's made.
You talk about the spirit world, and we touched on it a second ago with your premonition of, you know, what happened in Slane and on Millmount as well. But the spirit world, and I know we've talked about this before, and I've spoken with Dolores Whelan and others about the thin veil between where we are in this existence and some other place that's there. Do you feel, because I had this here, I just see it now, and I've asked you this already, this old man seems to have that gift. Do you feel that you do? Has this come from you?
Some of it has. Not from direct experience necessarily, but I think that in my work what I've tried to do is look at the scientific and the spiritual together. You know, I've done this with the Newgrange book last year, but I wanted to sort of really step into the mystical realm this time more so, and unshackle myself from the non-fiction, as I said. I like to see, I think mysticism, that my definition of mysticism is the ability to see the divine in everything, right? So to see the divine in the landscape and in nature, but also to see it in, you know, the monuments and the myths and the things and the people that have come before you.
And you don't need to be special, you're saying, to do that. Is this within the remit or the power or whatever of anybody?
I think it is. I do think it is. I think with some people it's switched off to an extent, and it's like a flame. It's like a light that is either on or off, or, you know, can be ignited at some stage. And some
people really have it on, and these are the people who can actually.
There are people with extraordinary gifts. Yeah, I'll give you an example. The lady who's launching the book tonight is Roisin Fitzpatrick. She's the artist of the light. Roisin had a near-death experience. She had an aneurysm. She was a high flyer for the UN. She had a high flying job for the United Nations, and she had an aneurysm. And she says that she went to heaven and came back again, and it has transformed her life. She wants to put that message across in her work to people. And now I haven't had any of those experiences. I'm trying to draw on something that's so deep within me that, Jerry, I don't even know where it's coming from. I was writing this book in the summer, right? And I don't know where some of it came from. I honestly don't. It was as if some of it was happening automatically. I felt magical when I was writing it. I felt on fire. I felt wonderful. I felt as if I had accessed some deep well of knowledge, something that I can't even explain, as if I had gone to the other world myself and come back again.
That's an incredible statement. Don't go anywhere. We're going to an ad break, but Anthony Murphy staying with us on Late Lunch. I think it's the first time I've ever interviewed the author of a novella. I like that word, a novella. That's a little novel, Anthony. Is that really what it is?
Yeah. And the most famous example is The Shawshank Redemption was made from a novella by Stephen King. Called Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption was the original novella.
So there you are. Oh my God, we're an illustrious company when you mention that, aren't we? Anthony Murphy, The Shawshank Redemption. You're going to see it on the big screen someday. Look, as I said, there are so many analogies, and you go on to use, things that like water, rock, wind, time, cycles of the moon. Can I ask you about wind for a moment? Because the most powerful and destructive of powers, when it unleashes, as we've seen in recent times, sadly in the Philippines, but even when we get a mighty storm here. But something I picked up from it, you said, we face the storm and hope to survive at times.
Yeah.
And only hope? Is that what you mean?
Trust to an extent. Trust and hope. Although I probably don't talk about trust as much as I do hope. I mean, there's an analogy, there's a story you'll remember about the storm, the fisherman at sea, and the storm comes and he's lost at sea for 2 days, and all he can do, and this is what I say, all you can do in these situations is pull down your sail, pull in your oars and cling to hope. And the most miraculous thing happens, and I'm not going to spoil it for people.
No, I don't want either.
The most miraculous thing happens.
We'll just say a full circle, and we'll leave it.
And that's an analogy for life.
Yes.
Because the storms come in life, and sometimes all you can do is hope and trust, and pull in your oars and pull down your sail. And that's all you can do. You are powerless to do anything else other than. But isn't there a little aspect of us when we're in trouble, deep down within, this little, I don't know what you call it, a well of trust that we can draw upon that says, look, it's going to be okay. Because I heard somebody recently, and I can't remember where it was, but it was on a radio station, and somebody said we tend to catastrophize, was the word they used. We think, what am I going to do? What's going to happen? And, what happens if I can't pay this? And what happens if I can't pay the mortgage next month? And what happens? And we catastrophize. And sometimes when you're in a difficult situation, you make it worse because of fear of the unknown. And the storm puts you in the middle of the unknown because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. And all you can do is hope and trust.
I know you're going to read for me, but I had down here a quote on page 60, was it? I may have the wrong page. I'm not going to read that for the moment because I'm going to let you read in a second. But what I wanted to ask you was this. You have, as you say, the Boyne Valley, Newgrange, the Celtic tradition in this country going way back, the mysticism. What's beyond this, Anthony? Like, I know it's a big question in the context of this book, but it is in there in a way. Like, we live this, get on with your short life, the song says, and that comes through as well. What's this all about, and where are we headed?
Well, that's the thing that I've been challenged about myself on my own journey, which started in 2001 with 9/11. 9/11 challenged my faith to the extent that my faith shattered eventually, because I realised that I was practising something that didn't make any sense to me anymore. And not only was it not serving me, Jerry, in actual fact, it was serving me negatively. It was dragging me down, right? Now, what I believe at the moment is based upon the accounts of people who have died and come back to life, and those are the people who have had near-death experiences, and they all say, yeah, there is something on the other side, and you know what? It's beautiful, and it's warm, and it's loving, and it's forgiving. Not everybody has the same experience, but Colm Keane has written several books about this.
Yes, we've spoken to him.
And he was an influence on my Newgrange book last year. And as I said, Roisin Fitzpatrick had a near-death experience. To me, it's fruitless. I mean, if we're part of some macabre experiment, some sort of twisted divine experiment, and at the end of it, we're to just die and expire, and that's it. Now, that doesn't make any sense to me. And I know there's lots of people will say, just because it doesn't make sense doesn't mean it's not the reality. Of course, that's true. My own experiences in life, to be honest with you, I have had some intensely mystical experiences, would teach me that we are part of something much greater, and that there absolutely is something beyond what I call corporeal death, the death of the body. Absolutely, I don't have any doubt about it now.
Would you fear your demise?
Yes, I think if somebody told me tomorrow I was going to die, I would still fear it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not in that position. I'm not in that brave position of being able to say, look, I don't fear death. Of course I do. John Banville said in an interview that he doesn't want to leave this life. He said it's like a great party. You know, with all of life's tragedy and its experiences and everything, it's still largely a wonderful and fascinating thing. And I'm with John Banville on that. I don't want to leave this life, much as I do think that there is something beyond it, and something more glorious, and something where we don't have the body to worry about, and all of the aches and pains and all the trouble that physical life brings with it. You know, the one thing is that, and I get this across in the book, and I also mentioned it in the Newgrange book last year, is that we will all be together in the other world at some stage. You know, we will all be together. Everybody who exists today, in about a century and maybe 20 years' time, 120 years' time, all of us who are alive today will be dead, will be gone. And what I'm saying is that I believe that we will all be in some other world. But not everybody believes that. A lot of people believe that that's it. In 120 years' time, everybody who's alive today will be gone, end of story, in a box, in a hole in the ground, rotting away. That's the end of it.
Can you assure me that I won't have to spend all that time with certain people? Or is that pushing the boat a bit too far? I'm only being facetious saying that, I understand. Will you read for me, because we just have a minute or so left before we go to... First off, I want to say you're launching the book tonight in the Barbican at 7:30. Is that an open door? Or
absolutely. Anybody who wants to come can come along.
Give us a minute from the book. This is Anthony Murphy reading from Land of the Ever-Living Ones, and I will say thank you to you in advance for joining me today.
No problem. The thunder spoke in a great voice, as if the whole universe was speaking all at once. It said, I am the one who reminds you that before the beautiful dawn must come the darkness. You have endured the night long enough, old man. I am the one who chases the darkness away like a storm and calls upon the great light of the world to renew its everlasting cycle. And with that, the storm that had enveloped me dissipated. The winds calmed, the rains fled, the lightning ceased, and the thunder rolled away to a distant hum. The stars seemed further away now, and the singing and music faded to a whispering melody. A brilliant light appeared out in front of me. It was a dazzling whitish yellow, so brilliant that for a moment it blinded me, and the whole scene that had been wrapped around me was gone. I was immersed in this wonderful light. I felt warm, and I felt a great love. It is hard to describe. I could see nothing about me but light in every direction. Shortly, the radiance dimmed somewhat, as if it was narrowing into a single beam of sunlight, like a slender shaft of brilliance in the darkness. As the light waned, I could see nothing about me, only black darkness. But I did not feel afraid, nor did I feel alone. I was wrapped up in all the warmest feelings, with this beautiful light streaming towards me from a point out in front. All of the stars had vanished, and the sounds were gone. All that was left was me in the darkness, and this beautiful shaft of light, like a fiery sword of hope drawn in from the depths of the other world. One more voice came out of the darkness and whispered, "The Dagda has come, bringing light into the darkest places."
Read by the man himself, Anthony Murphy from Land of the Ever-Living Ones. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Jerry.